I'm on the back of a scooter in Rio de Janeiro, heading up here in a favela where I'm about to go on a favela tour. What that's all about, sorry, you can hear more about in this episode. This is the Radio Vagabond podcast.
Today I'm in the heart of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, and later I'll take you to a favela. But we start in a place that resonates with the beats of millions of hearts, the legendary Maracanã Stadium. Sitting here, I'm right in the middle of bright colors and the sound of cheering fans. This place is more than a stadium. It's full of excitement, history, and football. You know, what you guys in the US call soccer. It was a central venue for the 2014 FIFA World Cup and the 2016 Olympics. Here, with my nomad friends and cheering local fans, it's clear that Maracanã is not just a place to watch football. It's a place to experience the soul of Brazil, a country where football isn't just a game, but a way of life. And then one of my friends point out that they're singing my name. My name is Pala Bo, and this is the Radio Vagabond. Welcome to Rio de Janeiro, football flavors and favela life.
This is the Radio Vagabond.
The Maracanã started out as a big project for the 1950 FIFA World Cup. It was a big moment showing how much Brazil loves football. Over time, Maracanã has changed a lot. Each change has added a new story to its walls. In 1950, it was designed to hold a staggering 200,000 spectators. Many of these were standing only, and it was an engineering marvel at the time. For more than 40 years, that was the maximum capacity, and although it was a record, it also represented a significant danger. In 1992, during a match of the Brazilian Championship between two teams from Rio, a serious accident occurred. A part of the stands collapsed, causing more than 50 people falling and the death of 3 of the spectators. Due to this fatal event, the Maracanã Stadium was remodeled to accommodate a maximum of 130,000 people. This has been reduced even more, and now the Temple of Football can house 78,838, which is still quite impressive.
Feels really good here at the stadium that they're singing my name like that, Pala Bo. I'm sure you can hear it. That's what I hear. That's all I hear. And they just showed on the jumbo screen how many spectators we are, and 1,782 people in a stadium that fills 80,000. But still, it's been truly amazing, and
when you walk around the Maracanã, you can almost hear the crowds of the famous 1950 World Cup final. That was where Uruguay surprised everyone by beating Brazil 2-1. It's a game people still talk about because it shows how football can be full of surprises. The stadium's oval shape meant everyone had a great view of the action on the green fields. Legends like Pelé, Zico, Ronaldo, Neymar, and Maradona have all played here. And it's not just about football. Big stars like Paul McCartney, Frank Sinatra, Madonna, the Rolling Stones, and many others have performed here too.
The ultimate destination for armchair travelers who are looking for inspiration to get out into the real world and let loose their wanderlust.
Good afternoon.
Can I help you?
Yes, my name is Bob.
Radio Vagabond.
I'm in a favela in Rio right now, and a favela is the Brazilian way of saying a slum area or a poor area.
Does everybody have 5 reals for the motor taxi?
Yeah.
Everybody have 5 reals?
Yeah. We're going to be doing a motor taxi to the top. It's on a steep hill, so that's the best way to move around in a favela. You don't want to walk up these hills, and you can't get an Uber up here. The regular taxis, they do go into the favela, but the most normal thing is to take a motor taxi. Now I'm about to go on a favela tour, a guided tour with a group. We're 7 or 8 people, and we're going to be learning a lot about a favela here in Rio de Janeiro. And here's my motor taxi.
As we're getting on the back seat of our motor taxis, basically a scooter, and heading up to the top of the hill, let me just remind you that this episode is supported in part by Hotels25.com. It's a website where you can find the best deals on hotels, guest houses, and hostels. And now, something new, you can also find flights. Yes, you can also find your next cheap flight on Hotels25.com. Go and have a look, it's quite cool. And if you end up booking anything that way, you'll get the best rates, and I'll get a small commission. So it's a win-win for both of us. And it makes it possible for me to bring you even more content here on this channel. Hotels25.com. We're in a favela called Vidigal, with a view of the city where the landscape is a mix of beautiful beaches and steep hills. On many of these hills you'll find neighborhoods called favelas. These are really distinct because the houses are often built really close to each other with narrow streets winding through them. These houses are usually made from concrete and bricks, so not tin shacks, and they're painted in all sorts of bright colors. It's a kind of a patchwork quilt of buildings clinging to the hillside.
Right. Well, welcome to Vidigal, officially. So we'll start here, and then we're going to walk down the favela through the alleyways, and we're going to go visit the ecological park. I'll tell you more about that when we get there, and then we'll walk back to the space. So we won't do too much today just because it's hot. And with regards to photographs, you can take photos everywhere you want. Just avoid taking photos of people. And at any point in time, it is possible that we do come upon people who are armed. But don't be afraid. They have nothing towards any of us. None of us have anything to do with them or what they're doing here. And there's kind of a mutual understanding, of mutual respect. So everybody does their own thing, and if you have nothing to risk or any involvement in drug trafficking, then you have no problems. So you don't have to worry. All right?
This is Adam Powers Newman, who's showing us around. He's born in Colorado, but has been living here in Rio for a number of years. The people who live in the favelas are mostly working-class Brazilians. A lot of them moved to the city from other parts of Brazil looking to work and ended up building their homes on land that wasn't being used. That's how the favela started, way back over 100 years ago. They weren't planned by the city. People just built where they could.
So a favela is essentially an illegal occupied territory that people settled without permission from the government. So traditionally, the majority of the population of favelas was composed by ex-slaves and northeastern Brazilian immigrants that were coming to Rio or to other major metropolitan areas in search for jobs and opportunity. Yeah. And so those people came originally, and then their families came, and those areas started to grow.
How would you describe it? Can you compare it to anything anywhere else in the world?
A favela
is it like a township in South Africa?
Yeah, favela is
not a slum area.
Well, it is. A favela, by generic terms, in a way that most people would understand, is a slum. And what is a slum? A slum is a squatted upon territory of land that's been occupied illegally.
But you don't see a lot of tin roof houses or tin shacks or
Well, the favela's gone through an evolutionary process, right? So at the beginning, there was no water, no electricity. All the homes were built out of wood and tin roofs. And then over time, as concrete became more widely available throughout the country, then the infrastructure started to improve. And so it's just gone through a development process that maybe slums in other areas of the world haven't gone through. I'd say one of the major differences, there's a lot of different types of favelas, right? Different levels of poverty. So Vidigal is more of a middle-class favela. The average...
That's where we are now.
Correct, yeah. The average income in Vidigal is about 1,200 reais, which is about 300 reais above minimum wage. So considering that's pretty good, but we're in the south zone of the city, which is one of the most expensive areas in Rio. So comparatively, it still keeps people in poverty, essentially. If you go to the north area of the city or on more of the outskirts, like in the peripheral areas, the level of poverty is much, much worse, and you could compare it something to like you would see in India or Egypt or Africa, where people are missing all of the basic resources. Yeah, so here, people live in the favela out of a means of necessity. Rio and Sao Paulo, after Manhattan, have the highest cost of living in comparison to wages in all of the Western Hemisphere. So although people, you could think, okay, $300-400 a month, that's pretty good considering to somebody making $1 a day in India, right? But considering the cost of living is so high, 80% of people's income is going to go to their rent and a little bit for their food, and there's nothing left over. So people can't really ever move forward. The original favelas actually were developed by ex-soldiers that the government used these soldiers in order to win a war in Bahia, and called the Canudos War. And after they won the war, they were promised territory. And then that territory was actually never delivered. So you had all these soldiers who had no money and had nowhere to go, who moved into the hillside areas in downtown Rio. The first favela is called Morro da Providência. So that's where people moved up, and they found a plant called favela, which you find in northeastern Brazil. And it's a thorny plant that grows really fast, but is also really beautiful. So there's also the kind of this, simile, this kind of metaphorical comparison of favelas being something that grows fast, has lots of thorns, but is also very beautiful in its own way.
So favelas have been around since the late 1800s. Over time, more and more people who were struggling to find affordable housing in the city started building their homes here too. Vidigal is a diverse favela in which you'll find anything from fancy bars to authentic corner shops. The locals are beyond welcoming, as they're used to having international travelers around.
1 in 3 people in Rio live in a favela. That means about 3 million people live in a favela, so it's a huge part of the city, which generally goes unshone. The municipal government and the state government has made it very clear that they have no interest in supporting the favelas through tourism, and has basically all but removed them from the touristic map. This is a new policy by the most recent government, which is led by a pastor. The mayor right now is a pastor of the evangelical church, so very conservative, aligned with a lot of the other government elements that you see. But they've now put red zones all over the favelas and called them high-risk areas, and are basically not motivating people to go there at all. Over the past 4 years before that, we had done a lot of really good work. I was a founding member of a nonprofit that brought together leaders from favelas all over the city that work in tourism to create new legislation that forced large companies to work with locals when operating any kind of touristic experiences in the communities. So before that, you had what they call the Jeep Safari tours, which were these Jeeps that would put a bunch of people in it, charge huge amounts of money, drive them through the favela, telling them that they're at risk of being shot if they weren't with them. And almost none of that money actually stayed in the community, and it just contributed to strengthening a lot of the social divide and stereotypes about communities. And so we created Favela Experience, which is kind of a tool to try and combat that and show that tourism in the favelas can be done responsibly, it can be done sustainably, but it has to be done in partnership and by the people in the community. So what we generally do if we're going to operate experience in a new community is we first engage the local leaders in that community, and we start to map out what does the authority look like, what are the different areas of interest, what are the different social projects, what are the different places that people might be interested in seeing, and see if those people are interested in being part of the tourism economy. If they are, then under what circumstances? How would they like to show their community, and which way should that be done? So we take that information mixed together with what some of our corporate partners might be saying about what they want, and we try to find a happy medium. So defending the professional needs of a large-scale, travel agency or hotel, and combining it with the needs of the local community so that we can get a product that's a win-win on both sides.
From here, where we are now, the view is totally amazing, and we can see all the way down to Ipanema Beach. And at the same time, I've been down there also at nighttime when I can look up here to see this mountain and see all the lights at night flickering. So I thought, wonder what it's like up there. Now I have a feeling of it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, I think, you know, a lot of people come to Rio and they're really kind of scared, or, you know, they look up at the hillside from above and it's like this mysterious place of like, what's going on up there? Can I go there? You know, and that's what happened to me when I first moved to Rio. It was like I looked up to all these tiny, you know, colorful, you know, poorly constructed homes, and I said, what is going on there? Like, it's beautiful, though it's doesn't make any sense, you know, like the most beautiful locations in the city are full of, you know, brick homes, and I said, can I go there or not? And so I think, you know, we want to break down that barrier that prevents people, you know, from going to cool places.
Yeah, favelas are kind of like their own world inside the city, but they also have their share of problems. For a long time they were kind of ignored by the government, which meant that they didn't always have things like running water or electricity. Plus, some favelas have issues with crimes and gangs, which can make them dangerous places, especially for tourists who don't know the area.
The hardest people to convince about everything I've been telling you are people from Rio. Yeah. Because most of them have been programmed by the machine, right? So they go home every day, they turn on Global News, and Global News goes, one more shooting in the favela, everybody's dying, you know, the sewage is leaking everywhere, it's hell on earth, stay in your home, you know? So the media perpetuates this terrible image, unfortunately. Well, my strategy is basically, is there even a place for engagement? Right. If there's not, then I'm not even going to. It's not even worth it, because like they're already so closed-minded. They already think they know everything. So just like let them live in their box, and that's cool. Other people just don't know, but they're curious, and especially when they meet me, it breaks down everything in their mind. They're like, "What the hell? How did this Jewish American guy move to Rio, and now he's living in the favelas, and he's telling me that he has a quality life there? Something's wrong there." So in many ways, I'm able actually to break down that bridge easier than people from the favela. But what we want to do in the future is start offering tours to the favelas just for cariocas that are free. Cool. So that we can just start getting them into the community and start creating more interdialogue between local residents. Because the same way that there's stereotypes of from the rich neighborhoods about the favela, it's vice versa. People from the favela think rich people just want to screw everybody over, that they're bad people, that they must have scammed somebody, or they're corrupt, or they don't care about poor people, and that's also not true.
Have you, so one of the women that I spoke to a couple of nights ago is actually from this favela, I think. That name that you said sounded really familiar. Yeah. And I asked her if in her like 30-something years of experience she had ever heard of a tourist getting hurt or injured in a favela, and she said no, she can't think of anything. And you've said the same thing on this tour. Can you think of but it's different for a local, because I stand out. People know that I'm a tourist, right? Here in the neighborhood. But if a carioca comes into a favela, maybe there's a different response. Is that true? Or?
It's not true, actually. Okay. No. So again, it depends on the favela, right? Every favela is different.
Sure.
Totally. Like there's favelas in the far north zone that it's just hell. Like
bad neighborhoods.
There's crackheads everywhere. There's fires everywhere. Like there's guys with machine guns all over the place. Everybody's on drugs. Like it's really, really intense. It's really sad.
So this is not like your regular tourist spot in Rio. Some favelas are safer than others, and in recent years there's been a push to make them more secure. But it's still a good idea to be really careful. If you're super curious about seeing a favela, it's best to go with someone who knows the area well, like a local guide. As mentioned, Adam, our guide, is American, but he lives here, and he told us that he made a rare exception for us today, so there wasn't going to be a language barrier.
So typically, I never do the tours, nor does anybody from our team. We strongly believe that tourism in the favela should be conducted by people from the favela. But today, I made a special exception because of the English factor, specifically, and the fact that I wanted to be able to contextualize some things for you guys.
At some point, we stopped for a coconut drink at a corner shop. I noticed that there was a Volkswagen Beetle parked 20 meters away. I was quite impressed how it was maneuvered into a carport with only a few centimeters to spare on each side. So I snapped a photo. What I didn't notice that there was a guy sitting in a chair in front of his house, and he didn't like having his photo taken, so he sent one of his guys up to us and instructed me to delete the photo immediately. I couldn't help wondering if the man in the red plastic chair was some kind of gang leader.
You can see pictures, videos, and links and read much more on the radiovagabond.com. You can also send a few lines to Palabo and get featured on the show. Tell him where you are and what you're doing right now as you're listening to these words. Just click on Contact on the radiovagabond.com.
In the middle of the favela, there's a nice ecological park, a green and lush area. Here we meet Paulinho, an older man who started the project.
E o parque aqui é uma interação para juntar a comunidade, todos.
So the intention of this park is to help try to bring everybody together. He feels that everybody's kind of separated and on their own path, and the idea is the park can help bring everybody together so that we can be happier.
Porque a nossa felicidade aqui.
He believes that this place functions as a place where people can be one together and share ideas with each other and converse about things, and this space kind of creates a safe place for that to happen.
Porque aqui era lixão. E na veia condições.
So I asked him, why did you make all this? Why did you create this place? And he said, well, this was a big trash dump, and he believed that it's a very noble thing to want to transform something that's bad into something good. And so by cleaning this place up, he could take something that was a source of negativity and turn it into something that's good for everybody else.
Tem evento da.
So today is a good example of that. They're having a birthday party here. So the park is a kind of place where anybody can come. It's a public space, and it's a point of attraction that when somebody doesn't have somewhere else that they can go to do something or to be together with family, then they can come here. And instead of finding a bunch of trash, they find a beautiful park.
E aqui a gente conduz assim.
The park functions basically on the help of volunteers, and he has Anastasia, who's that gentleman who he invited to come and stay here. He didn't have anywhere to go, so he's living in the house there, and he looks out after the park.
Desde quando foi criado o parque, aí como as pessoas vêm.
Here's a place that once you come here, you're part of the family,
aí todos estão
and
na
it's a place
família.
that belongs to everyone. And by coming here and being here together, we all can.
Obrigada.
Sim, princesa.
Obrigado.
Irmão.
Ah, obrigado.
Boa, irmão.
Obrigado, muito prazer.
So Adam, now we've done the walking tour. It was exercise of the day, I must say. There's a lot of hills here.
Well, I think that Rio is an incredible city, but there's so many levels of culture and experience within the city beyond just going to Ipanema Beach or going to the Christ statue or just having a caipirinha or going to samba or to watch soccer. And so the favela is where 30% of the population lives. Nearly 3 million people live in favelas. So it's a huge piece of the Brazilian culture. And I think if you want to come to Rio and you want to know Brazil, staying in the favela gives you an opportunity to really experience it at its base. And so we chose Vidigal Favela specifically because of its location, in the south zone of Rio. It's close to the beach. It has beautiful views. It's in a safe community. To go out at night, there's plenty of nightlife options. It's affordable. So I would say ultimately it's about that. Is we really wanted to create something that was immersive and also offer the ability for people to contribute to somewhere that also gives back socially.
Yeah. Your own story, you talked a bit about it in the beginning, but are you here to stay? Do you have a plan to go back to the U.S. at some point?
I mean, everybody asks me that question, of course, and I think it's like the similar question that you guys that travel and work all the time get, right? Like,
yeah, you just asked me.
Yeah, where's your home? Where do you live? And I also see myself as a global citizen. The more I travel, the more I fall in love with Rio. So for now, I'm happy here. I really enjoy what I do. I really enjoy the community that I'm a part of, and I'll continue doing that until I feel like it's not that anymore, or other opportunities present themselves knows, it will take me elsewhere where I can scale my experience to other parts in the world.
Yeah.
Kind of go with the flow.
But for now, you are Cabriole.
For sure. I mean, I'll go back to the U.S. To create business partnerships and to visit family and try to, bring some of the abundance that you have in the United States to Brazil and offer opportunities for Americans to get to discover something outside of their comfort zone. But go back and live in the United States isn't interesting to me at this point in time in my life.
Thank you so much for sharing it and for inviting us here.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you coming.
If you're in Rio and interested on going on a similar walking tour, I put the link in the notes section of your podcast app and on the radiovagabond.com, where you can also find a lot of photos. Adam also runs a non-profit called Favela Inc., where they develop spaces, technology, and incubation programs in favelas to speed up the socio-economic impact and local innovation so that community-based residents and organizations achieve long-term self-sustainability. Also, you'll find the link to that, and if you click on it, you can see how you can get involved and support the good work they're doing. And that brings us to the end of this episode from Rio de Janeiro. If you're going here, you should really consider going on a favela tour, and not just the touristy hotspots. But you should, of course, also see those. So, in the weekend, you'll get a quick guide to the top 7 must-see attractions here in this Samba city. That's another one of our new 10-minute Vagabond shorts. That will also be available as a video on YouTube and the Radio Vagabond on Facebook. Make sure that you don't miss that one.
Next week on the Radio Vagabond.
Next Travel Tuesday, I have more from Brazil for you.
Roads, where we're going, we don't need roads.
Mate, you ready, mate?
I am ready.
Ready, mate?
Yeah.
1, 2, go. Yeah, okay, woo!
Running off the edge is a rush like no other. Suddenly we're in the air.
Legs together. Yeah.
And all of Rio spreads out beneath us.
It's great. Open your eyes. Look.
I can see the vast blue Atlantic Ocean in front of me.
I believe I can fly.
The sprawling city below.
I believe I can touch.
My name is Palabo, and I gotta keep moving. See ya.
Radio Vagabond. Produced by RadioGuru.co.uk.